prize, but on behalf of all of us in the Ferguson family that work here and everybody that does so much to make this such a success, I'm really honoured to be able to welcome two special guests today. Obviously, most of us all know Boris Johnson, who's our Prime Minister, but also Gisela Stewart, who's a former Labour MP. So can you please welcome initially Gisela to the stage, who will say a few words to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Alan. It's great to be here at Ferguson's. And you wouldn't normally expect a Labour MP to share a platform with a Tory Prime Minister 3 days before a general election. But this is an unusual general election. When I became Labour MP in 1997, there was a spirit of hope to change the country. And, you know, first the Blair government did it. But the Labour Party, which I came into politics, which was a moderate Labour Party, which was one that was all-embracing, is not the Labour Party I see today under Jeremy Corbyn, whether it is anti-Semitism or the unwillingness to implement Brexit. This election is very different. And during vote leave, when we had the referendum, Boris and I shared a bus for about 4 months. I can tell you I was not grey when I started to enter that bus. I emerged grey at the end of it, but also wise. And one of the things which we saw, the further away we went from London, the more it was actually clear that there were whole swathes of the country who felt that Westminster was no longer speaking for them. And I think implementing the referendum and getting Brexit done is more than just our relationship with the European Union. I think it is also the relationship between Westminster and the rest of the country, and the relationship between the components of the United Kingdom. Now, when it comes to polling day on Thursday, I will not be voting for Jeremy Corbyn. But what I can do is that I can vote to get Brexit delivered. I can make sure that the job that we started 3.5 years ago actually gets done. And I think it is now incumbent on all of us to make sure and act in the interest of our communities and the country. And that's why even to traditional Labour voters were, like me, it's almost a family tradition to vote for Labour. This is a really, really hard decision to make. And voting on Thursday for Boris and for Brexit does not make me a Tory and does not make you a Tory. But what it does do, it is allows us to get this job done. So I'll ask all my Labour colleagues to join me once more on Thursday and vote for Boris Johnson and vote for Brexit, and we can bring the country together again.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Gisela. Thank you all. And thank you, Mr. Ferguson. Thank you to everybody who's invited us here. Gisela, it's wonderful to be campaigning with you again on this absolutely crucial issue for our country and for our future, because it's now 1,264 days since people in Sunderland voted to come out of the European Union. And what have we had in that time but just drift, dither, delay, procrastination by Parliament, a refusal to get Brexit done, a refusal by every other party except the Conservative Party to get Brexit done. And why have we got to get Brexit done? We've got to get it done because it's our democratic duty to get it done. People voted for leaving the European Union, and we need to take advantage of all the benefits that Brexit will bring, whether it's taking back control of our money, our borders, our laws, the way we run ourselves, our immigration system, all free trade deals, free ports, all those things we can do if and only if we get Brexit done. But we also need to do it for the sake of our economy at the moment. Now, there's too much uncertainty. Get Brexit done, we'll unleash a wall of investment into this country. Businesses, families will know what they're doing and where they're going. We also need to get Brexit done because we need to move our politics on. And it's blocked, it's paralysed at the moment in Westminster. And we're a one-nation Conservative Party. We want to move our country forward. We're making huge investments now in health, biggest ever investments in the NHS, in education, lifting up funding for every school in the country, investing in 20,000 more police, fighting crime. We want to get on with an agenda to give everyone in this country the chance they deserve, uniting and levelling up across the whole country with infrastructure, better education and technology, whether it's gigabit broadband or 5G telephony or whatever. We want to move our country forward, but it's blocked. What we need is a way out, and we've got it. We've got a fantastic deal. We've got a deal with our European friends that allows us to come out of the EU on January the 31st. It's there. It's ready to go. It's oven ready, as I always say. You can put it in now, and it'll be done before you have your turkey or your sprouts. It's done. And what is the alternative? What is the alternative on Thursday? The alternative is yet more delay, yet more division and deadlock, because I'm afraid that Jeremy Corbyn has no deal. He has no way out. He wants to spend another 3 months negotiating a deal, and then another 6 months to put that deal to a referendum, when he can't even say whether he backs the deal himself. In fact, he can't even say whether there's any single member of his shadow cabinet who backs the deal. We've got, I'm proud to say at this election, every single one of the 630 Conservative candidates, all with very differing views, backing our deal at this election. How many of Jeremy Corbyn's MPs actually back his deal? How many of his, I don't know, I can't think of a single one. Not even Mr. Corbyn himself, as I say. So that is the choice. That is the choice. We can either go forward with sensible one nation Conservative policies, investing massively in our public services, or you can have a catastrophic socialist government under Jeremy Corbyn with John McDonnell, Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell, who would put up taxes on working people. People on £20,000 a year could be paying £1,000 more in tax. On average, taxpayers are going to be paying £2,400 more. National debts will rocket so that interest rates will go up, affecting everybody's mortgages. It's a recipe for economic disaster. It would take a sledgehammer to our economic productivity. We want to back people, we want to back business, we want to support working people with tax cuts for everybody. 31 million people will get a tax cut when we cut national insurance, and we'll lift up the living wage by the biggest ever amount. We want to support people across this country, and we want to support businesses as well. I'm afraid that the Corbyn and McDonnell have absolutely no understanding of the vital importance of supporting both people and the cost of living and making sure that businesses can flourish as well. That's what we want to do as One Nation Conservatives. That is our programme. It is a sensible programme. And I just say to you, that is the choice on Thursday. Do you want to take this country forward? Get Brexit done. Get moving again. Get motoring. Invest in our country. Or do you want to have another year of drift, deadlock, dither and delay? Because under Corbyn's proposals, you wouldn't have just one referendum on the EU, you'd have one on Scotland as well, wasting everybody's time with 2 more referendums when we should be getting on and delivering on the will of the people. Folks, 1,264 days ago, people in this part of the country, people across this country, spoke and said that they wanted to leave the EU. Now is the moment for us to get on and do it. Now is the moment to show that we respect our democracy. Now is the moment to deliver for the people of this country. Let's get Brexit done. Let's take our country forward. I hope very much I can count on your support and vote for a One Nation Conservative Party on Thursday. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to ask first of all members of the Mr. Ferguson. Mr. Ferguson.
The family of employees. So, Mr. Johnson's very willingly going to answer some of your questions. So, can you please say who wants to ask a question of the Prime Minister?
Yes, sir.
Do you think it's actually going to profit us by leaving the EU, or what do you think?
I do. I do. I think there are lots of advantages in terms of getting investment in immediately into the country. And I've mentioned that there's about $150 billion worth, according to a recent report, that will come in as soon as we get our deal done. But there are also the opportunity for this country to discover new opportunities, new markets around the world. And we've got to do that. And the great thing about the deal that we have ready to go is that it protects businesses, it protects supply chains. It means we leave the EU with our relationships absolutely intact. So we have a zero tariff, zero quota relationship with the EU as we come out. We can protect our supply chains, leave, get on with it, and begin doing other deals around the world. Yes, sir.
Guarantee the future of NMUK in the northeast.
Sorry, NM.
Nissan,
Nissan,
sorry.
yes. Of course, it's absolutely vital that we protect, as I say, supply chains, we protect Nissan Motors, and we make sure that people continue to invest in our country, and they will. And what I think businesses large and small want to see is certainty about the arrangements we can do. And the thing about the deal we've got ready to go is, as I say, that it does protect the supply chains, it keeps them intact, it makes sure that we have complete equivalence when it comes to our standards, our industrial requirements and all the rest of it. So as we come out, it's all protected from the point of view of big motor manufacturing investors in our country. But we will also have the opportunity to do further deals around the world.
Question over there.
Changing topic ever so slightly, would you ever consider funding the air ambulance and the vital work they do?
Yes, I think that the air ambulance is a quite incredible organisation, and I'm always amazed how little government gives to it by comparison with charitable donations. And I will certainly make sure that the NHS contributes to the cost of the air ambulance, because it does a fantastic job, and I've seen how it saves lives. Particularly for victims of knife crimes or stabbings, the air ambulance can make all the difference. It arrives, within 15 minutes or in the golden hour. It saves people's lives.
Another question over there.
Why don't you abolish TV licence fees?
For everybody. Well, I don't think at this late stage in the campaign I'm going to make an unfunded spending commitment like that for the BBC. But what I certainly think is that the BBC should cough up and pay for the licences for the over 75s as they promised to do. But at this stage, we are not planning to get rid of all TV licence fees, though I'm certainly looking at it. And what I will say is that I'm under pressure not to extemporise policy on the hoof. But you have to ask yourself whether that kind of approach to funding a TV, a media organisation, still makes sense in the long term, given the way other organisations manage to fund themselves. That's all I will say. I think the system of funding out of what is effectively a general tax, isn't it? Everybody has a TV. It bears reflection. Let me put it that way. How long can you justify a system whereby everybody who has a TV has to pay to fund a particular set of TV and radio channels? That is the question. I think you have one already. Anyway, I'm going to go to the BBC in a minute to ask the first question. I think one of the questions. Yes.
Fuel duty in the UK is
Fuel
far
duty.
higher than any other
Yes.
EU country. If Brexit finally happens, could that change?
Yes, in the sense that we have the potential to do what we want with our fuel duty. I don't want to make any more fiscal commitments than I've made already in this campaign, except to say, you may have missed it, except to say fuel duty will not be going up. Fuel duty will not be going up. Anything else?
Can I just ask
yes.
someone, if I may?
Yes.
On the, you did mention infrastructure.
Yes. The A1.
The A1, yes.
The A1.
Exactly.
We're gonna
You know
dual
the
A1.
question, and our trucks use the roads, and apart from needing to have a good deal that we know how to go going forward, because it's the deal that matters, we really need to know that we're getting investment in the likes of the A1 up to Edinburgh, and keep Scotland and England linked together.
Yes, yes, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's crazy to have another referendum on the union with Scotland when we had that in 2014, and everybody was told it was a once-in-a-generation event. Why should we have that now, just as the price of a Corbyn-Sturgeon pact on the A1? I think I said to you 2 years ago that we would dual it. I don't know why it hasn't happened. We've got to get on and do that. We have a massive programme of infrastructure investment. It's not just about big ticket railway schemes, not just about Northern Powerhouse Rail or whatever. It's about putting money into the roads, because that makes a huge difference to people's lives and to their ability to do their jobs. So we will certainly be dueling the A1. But I want to stress, the only way you can make these long-term investments in infrastructure is if you run a sound economy. And what you can't do is do what I'm afraid Labour did last time, and that is rack up such colossal debts that you're basically bust as a country, which is where we were in 2010, if you remember. We need to be putting in money for the long term into infrastructure and into the NHS, but also making sure that we stimulate the productive sectors of the economy as well, making sure we support business as well. Any other questions? We covered the waterfront here. Oh, wait, I've got some media people. Hang on. Richard Moss, BBC Look North. How are you?
I promise. You're saying that you're going to be a voice for Sunderland in Westminster Whitehall. Why have you chosen Conservative candidates in here that are not Conservatives from Sunderland? They're from Kingston upon Thames, they're from Kensington in London, and they're from Warrington in Cheshire.
The Duke of Wellington said, he was born in. People are entitled to. I'm sure that Valerie will do a fantastic job representing this constituency. Of course there are. Valerie will do a fantastic job representing this constituency, as all our candidates will. And I think it would be very unfair. I don't remember Tony Blair having deep roots in Sedgefield, for instance. It'd be very unfair to discriminate against people on the basis of where they come from. That is not the way we do things. We have fantastic candidates. We want to support them. Yes, hang on. Greg, ITV time. Greg Easteel, Time Tees. Greg.
Prime Minister, you've set yourself a very tight deadline to get us out of Europe, the end of next year.
No, the end of January.
Nissan have said they'll go if you don't get a decent deal. Don't tell me, tell the people in here whose jobs will be affected by that. Can they really trust you to get a decent deal?
Well, Greg, we have a decent deal, and you'll have heard me describe it. It gets us out on January the 31st, and it enables us to take back control of our money, our borders, and our laws, all the things that we were campaigning on, Geezer and I were campaigning on in the Brexit campaign. But what it also does is it keeps us in a state of grace, a state of equivalence with our European Union friends and partners. So the zero tariff, zero quota arrangements that we have, the just-in-time supply chains, they remain absolutely there, perfect and intact.
To sort out a deal with Canada.
You
can do it in 5 minutes?
We have a fantastic deal. We have a fantastic deal. We're coming out in a state of complete equivalence already with zero tariffs, zero quotas. Now is the moment we get Brexit done and move on. Kevin Clark from the Sunderland Echo. Sir.
Over the last 9 years of the two governments that your party's been part of, Sunderland City Council has seen its funding slashed by a third. 5,000 people have lost their jobs as a result of that. How on earth can anyone in Sunderland trust your party on public services?
Well, because we believe in investing in, as I say, not just in infrastructure, in public services. Look at what we're doing with the NHS, putting money into hospitals here in the North East, putting money into Newcastle Hospital, for instance. But also, we are the party that has done more to lift people. There's 5,400 fewer people unemployed here in Sunderland since the date you mentioned, since 2010. And now this new One Nation government is absolutely determined, not just to invest in public services, not just the biggest investment in health, but also, as I say, to help with the cost of living for everybody in the country. So we're lifting up the living wage by the biggest ever amount. We're cutting national insurance contributions. We'll lift up the threshold at which you have to pay national insurance to £12,500, which will give everybody a £500 tax cut. That is the way we want to help. And I think you've got to bear in mind that we were, as I said before, we were in a very, very tough situation in 2010, and it's been necessary to manage the economy prudently. We've done that, and we're now in a position to support business, to support enterprise, but above all, what will help this part of the country and help all the country is if we can get Brexit done and move forward, because we cannot focus on anything. We can't focus on funding local councils properly. We can't focus on the NHS. We can't focus on all the plans we have for this country, while the politicians of this country are bogged down, rowing, fighting about Brexit. What our deal allows us to do is come out on January the 31st and move forward. Kate Dickinson, Chronicle Live. Yeah.
Rather similar, but does this election entirely come down to Brexit, and what can you offer voters in this region other than a promise to get Brexit done?
This election comes down to a stark choice between two ways forward for the country, and I've never seen anything like it. We can either have another year at least of complete political chaos, plus a far, far left agenda that would destroy the economic productivity of this country under Corbyn and McDonnell, to say nothing of breaking up the union with Scotland or having another referendum on that. But you'd also have drift and dither on the EU. Our way forward is to get Brexit done, invest massively in public services, support our NHS, support our brilliant businesses, and unite the country. Unite the country through infrastructure, education, and technology. That's what we're going to do. And that is what I think the country needs. And I'm going to go to Laura from the BBC, Laura Koonsberg.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Do you really think, after nearly a decade of a very significant squeeze, struggled to look at a picture of a 4-year-old boy on the floor of an emergency department in a hospital in Leeds and then took the reporter's phone when he eventually persuaded you to look at it?
Well, I'm very proud of what we are doing to rebuild Leeds General Infirmary, and it's one of the hospitals that we will rebuild from the beginning. It will be a fantastic project, and we are putting, as I say, the biggest ever investment into our NHS, £34 billion, and I think that will be absolutely transformative for the NHS. And we are putting 50,000 more nurses in. We will be 6,000 more GPs, as you know, 50 million more GP appointments over the next 5 years. We want to transform our NHS. It is a fantastic, fantastic service. But you can only do that if you have a strong economy, and you can only do that if we move this country forward and get Brexit done. And this is a very, very ambitious government. We're a very impatient government. We want to get on with our work. What we don't want is Parliament blocking us again. And that's why I hope everybody will vote for a One Nation Conservative government on Thursday and move us forward. Paul Brown, ITV.
Prime Minister, one of your biggest challenges in this election is to persuade people that you really do care, that you really are trustworthy. And yet today, when you're shown that picture of the 4-year-old boy on the floor of an A&E department, you take the phone away and put it in your pocket. What does that say about how much you really care?
Well, Paul, I think I've answered that question. I don't know whether but we are not only investing in children's services in Leeds, but we're also rebuilding the whole Leeds Infirmary from top to bottom. And we can do that because we're now putting the biggest ever investment into the NHS. What I don't want to see is a fantastic programme that is going to unite and level up our country being blocked again. We've got a bill in Parliament that would insist that we have to increase funding on the NHS over and above inflation every year. That's now blocked by this Parliament because we haven't got a working majority. If we can get a working majority on Thursday, we can take this country forward, get Brexit done, and invest massively in our public services. And that is the choice we face. Kate McCann, Sky News.
Thank you. Prime Minister, you're here in the North East. It's a Labour stronghold. To win this election, you need to turn red seats like this blue. But for many people here, that means voting Conservative for the first time. That's a big decision. Do you think you personally have done enough to convince them to trust you?
Kate, how am I supposed to know? I'm doing my best. Kate, this is about I think, a fundamental choice for this country. And I really think that we are in danger on Thursday of taking a disastrous step. And it's not just because I think that Mr. Corbyn and Mr. McDonnell would be very bad for the UK economy, bad for our defences. I think they take the wrong approach to our national security. They spent a long time supporting various enemies of this country, whether it's the IRA or Hamas or Hezbollah or whatever. It's not just that. It's the political paralysis, and it's the failure to get on with the priorities of this country. That is the real problem. We have a very energetic, very dynamic, one-nation government that wants to get on, with colossal investments in the NHS, in our infrastructure, in schools, police. It started, and 130 days ago, I stood on the steps of Downing Street, set out our programme. We are delivering it now, but we want to get on and deliver it, and you can only get on with that if you can get Brexit done and move forward. I'm going to go to Richard Wheeler, finally, from PA.
Hi. You mentioned a lot about the 635 candidates that have made the pledge on Brexit. How long is that pledge lasting for? Is it to the end of January and getting the first point through? Is it the trade part? And what happens if they break it? Are they losing the Tory whip again?
Well, here we get the question. This is about the 635 candidates. They are pledged to me personally to support the deal that we have done. And I cannot envisage any circumstances in which they would fail to do that. Look, we have not, as I said, we haven't lobotomized them. They've done it of their own free will. They believe in this deal. They see it as the best way forward for our country. And I think that they will, they would be crazy if they didn't see it as the best way forward. It is a fantastic deal, and it actually brings together people from all parts of the European debate in the Conservative Party. And there's a lot of them. So I really draw the distinction. And if you answer your question, yes, of course. If they then vote against it, they will, of course, they can expect disciplinary procedures. But I really don't think that is going to happen. We have the candidates who are there, ready to back our deal. The deal is ready to go. It's a just add hot water, put it in, it's ready, and we can get it done. Any other questions? Yes.
If Labour and their manifesto don't scare the Conservatives, why then was fake websites set up and paid Google to put them above Labour's websites so people can't even find what they're looking for?
I'm afraid that the question was about fake news websites being put up above Labour's.
Manifesto and Labour themselves don't scare the Conservatives. Why were fake websites set up and Google paid so them results would come up higher on Google than Labour's actual manifesto? Right. I'm afraid the short answer to that question, I haven't got the foggiest idea. But as far as I understand it, what happens is that there's an awful lot of activity on the internet to try and promote views of one kind or other. What I can tell you is if you want to look at our manifesto, it's there online. It's a great manifesto. It will take this country forward. It will enable us to get Brexit done and move onwards. And that's what we want to do.
That's one of the things you're referring to. Similar.
Well, I mean, yeah, I've heard about that, and obviously, I think that a lot of this is basically a kind of media diversion. What the public really want to know about is what are our plans to get Brexit done and move this country forward. And yes, I've explained that I think that what the people of this country want to hear is what our plans are to move this country forward, get Brexit. Thank you very much I've answered your question already. I know. But what I think the people of this country want to hear is what our plans are to get Brexit done and move forward.
But it's been interfered with.
Well, I'm very sorry if you can't find that online, but I'm sure it's there somewhere.
Shouldn't you know, like what's going on?
I'm afraid I do not know what I'm pretty certain that you can find the Labour manifesto online. If you can't, then that's obviously a problem. But I think it's there. And by the way, I think that the more people who are aware of what Labour's plans are, the better, because I think they'd be economically ruinous for this country. And I think it would be disastrous if people were to vote for Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell on Thursday. I'm afraid it would be a serious misstep. Anyway, Thank you. Thank you all. I, of course, want, that's why I'm here today. I, of course, want everybody to understand that we have a very simple and a very clear agenda, which is to get Brexit done and move the country forward. And I think what is going on, whether we're accused of interfering with the internet or whatever it happens to be, I think an awful lot of distractions are being introduced into this debate. It is now 3.5 years since the people of this country voted to leave the European Union. And that is the fundamental issue that this election is all about. And I'm afraid that in Parliament, you have three parties, Jeremy Corbyn, you have Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP, and you have what are the other ones? Liberal Democrats, who are simply refusing to get Brexit done. And at every stage in this election, they've thrown up more dust and more diversions to try and conceal what this is all about. This is a broken parliament that will not allow the people of this country to have their voices heard. And it will not allow the people of this country to express their will. They expressed it 3.5 years ago. They spoke loud and clear. They said, let's get Brexit done and let's come out of the EU. And all that's happened in the last 3.5 years is that they have been frustrated. Well, if you vote Conservative on Thursday, we will get it done, we will take our country forward, and we'll have a brighter future. Thank you all very much. Thank you.